It is an honor for me to be speaking again after a long time. Being here with such honorable people is a great moment in my life. And it's an
This
honor for me
was the
today
Pakistani-born Malala Yousafzai battling for her life on the day she was shot at close range by the Taliban on the streets of her hometown, Migora, for daring to speak out publicly and to even blog in defense of the right of the girl child to education in her country, located on the fringes of the volatile Middle East region. Born on July 12, 1997, which was in 2013 declared as Malala Day by the United Nations, the young Pakistani girl who survived the life-threatening attack by the extremists has since become a global voice for the over 130 million girls who are out of school across the country, including Nigeria. She insists her story is not unique, but just the same as the story of the 130 million girls who she is today advocating and demanding for 12 years of free, safe, and quality education for them. This explains why Malala headed to Nigeria for the first time in July 2014, barely 100 days after the adoption of the over 100 Chibok schoolgirls in Borno State by the Boko Haram terrorist group to meet with then-President Goodluck Jonathan at the presidential villa in Abuja, the nation's capital, and meeting also with parents of the adopted girls and members of the Bring Back Our Girls BBOG movement.
I consider those girls as my sisters. They are my sisters, and I'm going to speak up for them until they are released. And I am going to participate actively in Bring Back Our Girls campaign to make sure that they return safely and they continue their education.
With little or no action taken by the Nigerian government after 3 years of the commitment made by the presidency, Malala, who is the youngest ever Nobel Peace Prize winner in the history of the Nobel laureate, returned to Abuja in July 2017. This time she met with the then acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, to push the Nigerian government into taking action following the change in the country's leadership after her last visit in 2014.
I was really happy to hear a positive response from the acting president that they are happy to ensure that they are happy with the suggestion of implementing emergency and for education, and that they are happy to work more on education, that they are united.
This is Straight Talk. I am Tyav in Abuja, and we welcome all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to the program. You can also join me in the conversation on my online platforms on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn, with all the handles on the webpage of our partners, mediadimensions.live. And we shall henceforth be selecting viewers who would subscribe to the YouTube channel and also engage issues raised on this program across our social media handles to share with us their vision for Nigeria on subsequent editions. The visit of Malala Yousafzai to Nigeria twice within 3 years must not be lost on anyone. She perhaps may not have visited any other country in that manner. It is indeed worrisome that by the end of the 2017-2018 school year, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, says there were 262 million out-of-school children globally. And for the United Nations Children's Fund, that's UNICEF, recent survey shows that the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria has risen from 10.5 million as at 2015 to 13.2 million. While authorities of the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, have continued to dispute this data, the country's Federal Ministry of Education admits that as at today, Nigeria accounts for more than 1 in every 5 out-of-school children in the West African sub-region, with 60% of them being girls living in the northern part of the country. And no wonder UNICEF celebrates that 146,131 girls enrolled in schools in the country in the outgone academic year, with 62.2% improvement in attendance rate, up from 59%.
The figures that we have that is being brandished everywhere is 10.5 million, which came as a result of some researches that were done some years back by the UN, UNICEF and some other UN agencies. And this has been very worrisome to a lot of people, the stakeholders, especially UNICEF. And based on that, a lot is being done in partnership with government. UNICEF is working with Nigerian government at different levels, at the federal level, national and local government, state and local government levels. Our program has 3 key output areas. The first output is looking at increasing demand for education for children, getting parents to appreciate the value of education. So we're looking at the demand side to also increase the demand so that parents themselves or guardians begin to appreciate that they need to send their children to school. This is why you need to send. So we have a lot of programs under that first output, which includes enrollment drive. We're doing a lot of enrollment drive, enrollment campaign at the community levels. We're also embarking on community household mapping and listing, because we recognize that the figures that we are talking about out of school children is contextual, is controversial. People do not believe it. But so what we want to, and you cannot plan for out of school children without knowing who they are, where they are. So now, as part of our programs, we are also conducting what we call community household listing and mapping of out of school children. But this is happening in our focus states and focus LGAs. But for us, it's a good starting point for us to be able to say in LGA 1, we have 10,000 children who are of school age, proposed primary school age, and out of these 10,000 children, only 5,000 are in school. And even these 5,000 that are out of school, they are in Mohammed's household, they are in Ablahid's household, they are in Azuka's household. So this is the kind of thing we are doing as a strategy, as a beginning point to know where these out-of-school children are. We are hopeful that with our partnership with government, that government will likely embark on, replicate it and scale it up. But in these areas where we are working, we're able to now, results are coming to show that out-of-school children are much more than we can imagine.
From the global statistics of 261 million out-of-school children released by UNESCO, 64 million are of primary school age, while 61 million are of the lower secondary school age, which in Nigeria is known as the junior secondary school, that is the JSS, or most recently, basic education. The whopping 138 million out-of-school children are of the upper secondary school age, or what we call the senior secondary school in the Nigerian educational system. In fact, in the new Human Data Index published by the National Bureau of Statistics, that's the NBS, on October 7, 2018, for the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, Nigerian Human Development Report, only 39.2% of the female population in the country above the age of 25 years has obtained at least secondary school education. The situation is so bad that for 6 of the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, not up to 10% of the women above the age of 25 actually attended secondary school when they were teenagers. The affected states are Sokoto, that has 3.6%, Kebbi 4.6%, and Jigawa 5.4%. The others are Zamfara 7.3%, Katsina 7.7%, and Bauchi 9.5%. Unfortunately, this trend continues in most of these states, and it explains why Malala Yousafzai would advocate and demand for 12 years of free safe and quality education for the 130 million girls who are out of school worldwide, including Nigeria, to ensure that they do not just acquire primary, junior, or the famous basic education, but senior secondary school education. In Nigeria, drawing from the provisions of Section 18, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, for which government is to provide free primary, secondary, university, and adult literacy education when practicable, the subsisting law, which is the famous 2003 Child Rights Act, however, offers the Nigerian child free and compulsory education only up to junior secondary school level. In specific terms and in specific words, Section 15, subsection 1 of the law says, and I quote, "Every child has the right to free, compulsory, and universal basic education," end of quote. But in subsection 2, the responsibility is every parent or guardian shall ensure that his child or ward attends and completes his primary school education and junior secondary school education. Subsection 3 provides that, and I quote, "Every parent, guardian, or person who has the care and custody of a child who completed his basic education shall endeavor to send the child to a senior secondary school, except as provided for in subsection 4, end of quote, which is that the child shall be encouraged to learn an appropriate trade if he or she is not sent to a senior secondary school." Implementation of the Nigerian Child Rights Act remains questionable, but more worrisome is the fact that 10 out of the 36 states of the Federation are yet to domesticate the law. These include the 5 of the 6 states in the northeast geopolitical zone, namely Adamawa, Bauchi, Borno, Gombe, and Yobe, and 5 of the 7 states in the northwest zone, which are Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara. The most recent states to get off this unenviable list are Bayelsa State in south-south Nigeria and Enugu State in the southeast that domesticated the Child Rights Act in April and August 2016, respectively. Kaduna State in northwest Nigeria also adopted the act in February 2018 as the Child Protection Welfare Law. It is very instructive that the states that account for the highest number of out-of-school children in Nigeria are the 10 states that are yet to domesticate the Child Rights Act. Though, as observed earlier, there is a poor implementation of the law, even in states that have adopted it. But for the 10 states that have not, the attitude to education generally remains a testimony of how the government in those states set out to exclude as many children as possible, especially the girl child, from acquiring formal education, and most importantly, that of the senior secondary school level. It is not surprising, therefore, that the 10 infamous states are in the northern part of the country, where on April 14, 2014, there was the adoption of the over 100 Chibok schoolgirls, which more than anything else drew attention, but then to the safety of schools after the massacre of 59 boys at the federal government college, Buni Yadi, in Yobe State, northeast Nigeria, on February 25, 2014. Then there was the dramatic adoption of another over 100 schoolgirls on February 19, 2018, at the Government Girls Science and Technical College, Dapchi, in Yobe State, northeast Nigeria. The truth is, there are but few of these special senior secondary schools for girls in almost all the states with the highest number of out-of-school children in the country. Consequently, most of the girls who should be in school at this level in most of the communities are out of school because their parents or families cannot afford to, for various reasons, to send them to such boarding schools located in areas other than their hometowns. We have reached out to the authorities in Borno and Yobe states to engage this silent issue, where their governments have over the years failed to provide access to senior secondary education for girls in their states. but till date there have been no response to the request letters that were actually duly received by their respective liaison offices in Abuja, the nation's capital. In Bauchi State, also in northeast Nigeria, with the record of about 64% of school-age girls between the ages of 6 and 16 who are out of school, there are no girls' boarding schools or classrooms in the day schools in at least 9 of the 20 local government areas of the state. This effectively means that only the boys of senior secondary school age in the affected local government areas are in school or have access to education at this level, unless parents or families of the girls are kind enough to send them to the girls' boarding schools in neighboring local governments or even other states. The 9 affected local government areas in Bauchi State are Zaki, Giade, Jamarde, Itas Gadao, where there is even the state university, and Warji. The others are Kirfi, Dambam, Ganjwa, which shares common boundary with the state capital, and then Gamawa local government areas. The most disturbing issue is the fact that successive administrations in Bauchi State have over the years not been interested in changing the narrative since we first reported this exclusion of the girl child in the state in 2012. In fact, there seems to be a consensus between the education and political authorities in the state to maintain the worrisome status quo.
Sometimes I used to laugh. You hear that maybe about 10 million out of school girls. I don't know from where are they getting this information. Somebody will just sit down and write figures because maybe he wants to be appreciated by everybody. It's just not like that. It's a really research. You have to go deep. You have to go deep, to be opening schools anyhow. There must be, demand for that. And if, for example, point A has a senior secondary school, point B that is closer to point A, you understand, should be the catchment area for point A. Maybe, I don't know whether you understand.
But then a father that cannot even send the child to the next primary school that is just meters away from the house, how will such a parent be in a position to send the child to the point B that is in the next local government?
So that is what we are saying. The proliferations of schools, to me, this is my personal view, is not good for the system. Because some people, complain of trekking, about 2 kilometers away. You understand? But if you look at what is happening right now, the issue of some LJs doesn't have senior secondary school, or it's not the issue. The issue is how many are ready, to go to the next level. Are you getting what I'm saying? Now, government at its own capacity is doing much, to increase the issue of, the demand.
Well, because of the level of intake of the girl child in school, not every local government will have a girls' secondary school. The only thing is that the day secondary schools are co-educational, so girls can go to the day secondary schools. But then we have boarding secondary schools in selected local governments, because it's foolhardy for you to construct a secondary school just because you want to give one secondary school to each local government, only for them to lie fallow without students going in. The problem of girl child education is real, and we are tackling it headlong, especially as you have rightly stated, with the assistance of development partners. we are doing that, and we have begun to see results in that respect.
It is a sad tale that in a local government like Akaleri in Bauchi State, school-age girls always hawk at the local government secretariat during school hours. And in Darazo, local government area of the state, these girls even hawk at the government science secondary school where only the boys attend. Wife of the Bauchi State Governor and chairperson of the Northern Governors' Wives Forum, Hadiza Abubakar, who is from Katsina State, shares her story as a growing girl in northern Nigeria. She says access to education has improved for the girl child in the north over the decades, but then she also appears helpless, even with her pet project that has the objective of, quote, reintegrating girl dropouts into formal school system, end of quote.
If somebody like me could have gone to the university in those years, I went to the university in the 70s, you can see that a lot of improvement has been achieved. We still have a lot to do, and we are working on it to ensure that our teenage girls have access to education, access to health information, and access to skills training so that they can attain their full potential. After my primary school, I easily enrolled in secondary school. By the time I was going to university, there was a lot of pressure from the extended family. Incidentally, I happened to be the first female girl that attended university from the entire family. So it was a huge, huge war between my father and his siblings, let me say, his brothers, maybe his uncles. They believed that it was wrong for him to allow me to go to university. And they kept quoting that when girls are allowed to go to university, they become perverts, they become wayward. But what he did was he called me and said, I want you to go to the university because you are doing very well in school. But this is the problem that I'm facing with my own people. And I said, Baba, allow me to go to university, and I want to assure you that I will never bring shame to this family. So we had like a pact, and he allowed me to go to university, and the rest is history.